How you worded it, I might get a little bit wrong before we started the podcast, is without the atomic bomb, you wouldn't be here, where, on the other side, there's a lot of people not here because of the atomic bomb. So could you give us a little bit of context to who you are, especially around why you're here because of the atomic bomb?
Jacob, thank you so much for having me. Yes, and it is a week from today, August 6th, 2025, will denote, celebrate, recognize, and memorialize that day, infamous day in history. Little boy Enola Gay and all the many players that participated in this global changing event.
Absolutely.
And the reason that I say I wouldn't be here is because I literally would not have been born if it weren't for the atomic bomb. On one fateful day in October, my mother, Jane Halliburton Greer, stepped off a bus into 12 inches of mud and lost her shoe. She was met by her girlfriend, who was supposed to be her roommate at Oak Ridge, and a very tall, good-looking gentleman who was dating at the time this mother's roommate, and he came and rescued mother and could not find her shoe, but helped with the suitcase and escorted mother up the stairs of the guest house in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. So that starts that story of the meeting of Jane Halliburton Greer and my father, James Beverly Puckett.
Wow.
Okay?
He was a Kentuckian, right? Your dad?
And my dad was from Kentucky. But let's go back in time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
My father, James Beverly Puckett, was born in 1918. To Egbert Barnabas Puckett and Mary Bondurant Perkins Puckett. Both of my parents, by the way, were born when their parents were at or over 40, which was remarkable back in 1918 and 1922.
Yeah.
So that makes his story even more interesting, especially since Daddy was born during what is now called, after that horrible pandemic, the Spanish flu.
Which killed more people than World War I.
Which, yeah.
Like 50 million people or 40 million?
I do not know those numbers, but so that makes it even more interesting. My father's father, my grandfather, could not read or write, born in 1869. Wow. So talking about the amount of that he saw from the time of his death to 1948 is remarkable, from the human scope of life and changes on this mortal globe that we occupy. So that's a little bit of Dad. He was the 11th of 12, very bright, but a little sickly. He had kind of a heart murmur, but had 6 older sisters that survived. One other sister died before Daddy was born. So, but we still say he was the 11th of 12, and then he had 3 older brothers and a younger brother. So, yes, there was a younger Puckett from after Dad, with a father born in 1869. But, and Dad grew up, very interested in electronics. The movies started coming to town, and he got a job working at movie theaters and was just enamored by the electricity and all that, And my studies of what's happened in our history, by the way, Daddy was born in 1918, as I mentioned, and it was the same year that refrigerators and electric washing machines were introduced to homes in the United States. So that gives you an idea of what's happened for our lifetime. So he worked in movie theaters, and Kentucky at the time also, along with Tennessee, was known for flooding. And so he figured out about how to work with radios and electronics, and he even used walkie-talkies to help save people from floods when he was in high school. He had learned about a school out in L.A., and so he went to, for 2 years, a radio electronics school in Los Angeles, California. And he was there during the burgeoning time in the late 30s of of the growth of LA and the
Early
beauty of
Hollywood.
and the
Yeah.
and
Early
the
cinema.
and of cinema and all that.
How old would your dad have been about that time?
Daddy graduated from high school in 1937, and so he was out in LA from like 37 to 40.
So he was 18,
Yeah.
17, 18, 19.
He was 18.
Wow.
Yeah, 18, and then so and was out there and was a busboy and worked at the Brown Derby, and I mean, you know, who all he probably waited on or saw, he couldn't recall today.
Right.
But just to give you an example of how he looks or looked, people confused him later on in life with Art Carney. So my dad,
I definitely know who Art Carney is.
my dad looked like Art Carney. So he was out in L.A.
I don't know who Art Carney is.
For all the viewers as well, my screen may be shared as well.
The guy that we've all seen in many movies.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, well, he was Ralph Cranston's sideman in Honeymooners.
Yes, my dad looked like Art Carney.
Very cool.
So, and he was out in L.A. So, so during this time on Dad's early life, my mother was born to parents that were 42 years old in 1922 in Paris, Tennessee. Mother life was a bit different. She, oh, by the way, my dad's mother could read, and of course all of his older brothers and sisters went, and they had a diversity in their family of musicians and characters and very strong men, and they were kind of, some of his brothers were kind of known as roughnecks because they kind of were on their little, they had their own little police force because they had all these Puckett boys. So it was, and tobacco, and I forgot to mention that. Jim's giving us a thumbs up as he's chewing on his nicotine gum. But anyway, but tobacco was big, and Dad even told stories, and I'm sorry I didn't mention this earlier, of being on the low, kind of flat bed that would hold tobacco sprouts, or, well, not sprouts, but
Little like sprigs,
plugs, they called them. And he would sit with another little kid, and at 5 and 6 years old, and they would they'd each get a plug, and the mule would take one step forward and then put a plug in the ground, and the mule would take one step forward.
Tobacco.
And they were planting tobacco. So we have pictures of my great-grandfather in a warehouse. Francis Jackson Perkins and a lot of people in a Kentucky warehouse selling at auction, you know, just piles of tobacco leaves, of different leaves. And I am not a smoker. I don't like tobacco, except for, as a child, going through the different farms that the family had in Kentucky, smelling tobacco curing in barns.
I bet that's
is fabulous.
Yeah.
It is the cleanest smell in this world, and I just loved it. You know, we'd jump on a mule or an old horse and ride around, you know, the farms and whatever as a kid. And so, yes, I grew up understanding tobacco. So anyway, so that's a
too
little
bad
bit.
you don't smoke.
I'm lucky I don't smoke.
I know you
It's
are,
prevented me from having a lot more wrinkles than I already have.
Just if